Hello and welcome to the No Balls podcast. I'm your host, Patrick McDonald, with me co-host Finn McDonald. Today is the explanation episode for the top 50 list that actually went out the day of this recording. Um, so there won't be any comment questions that we'll be going over, but any questions that Finn had written down previously, or just any topics that I do think deserve a little more depth to them in explanation. I guess I'm gonna hand it off to you to start, Finn. What is the first thing you wanna scold me about? And don't make it Julio Rodriguez as part of the video, not making it in, because I don't know what happened.
I'm not gonna scold you about that. First thing I did want to state, thank you for having Kyle Tucker where Kyle Tucker needs to be. Unlike MLB.com, who for some reason has him ranked 14th.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think 14th was ridiculous for Kyle Tucker. Um, I understand the argument of having him a little bit lower because he's yet to put forth a full MVP caliber season. But for me, like playing at a 8.5 win pace as a 27-year-old was quite enough for me to say that he's playing at a top tier level at this point in time. And I put him at 7th this season. So I think I've continually been kind of high on Kyle Tucker, and then yeah, he's a top 10 guy for me now. So yeah, what else we got, Finn?
Honestly, I'd have Ramirez over Alvarez because Jose Ramirez plays in the field.
I mean, yeah, we're not necessarily here to debate one or two spots. I had Ramirez 11. I had Alvarez at 10. For me, like Alvarez will still probably play some field this year. That didn't necessarily like I wasn't accounting for him to be a primary left fielder or anything, but it was in consideration that Alvarez is still going to play some field, and he's like if you want to look and critique a batted ball profile, you can't do it with Yordan Alvarez because nobody hits the ball as hard as him, and avoids striking out and at the rate that he does. Like I think he was around the 80th percentile in K rate, and then like I think he might have been 100th percentile in hard hit rate. So Yordan Alvarez is crazy. That's him. Yeah, I mean, if you want to debate Ramirez over Alvarez, I honestly can't call you that crazy because I only had him one spot ahead of Ramirez. So yeah, next thing up on the agenda, what do we got?
We got Mike Trout going all the way down to 26.
Yeah,
Obviously, that's because of injury concerns and positional.
yeah. So it was announced today that Mike Trout's going to play right field. So I, that didn't play into these rankings necessarily, because I ranked him as a center fielder. Um, if Mike Trout were to be a right fielder, I don't know. I feel like he would have probably been in the same spot because the value is probably a little bit worse, but he then has a little bit more. Uh, I'm a little bit more confident in him staying healthy if he's playing right field for the whole season versus playing center field. So I don't know. I don't know how that would have happened, but yeah, Mike Trout at 25 or 26. I felt really weirdly comfortable with him next to Jackson Merrill. Um, and specifically like Jaron Duran's there as well in that kind of range. I felt like if we had seen a full season of Trout last year and he played at the level that he had, he would have probably been around 15. So I figured I would put him no lower than some of the older guys like Freeman and Altuve who are his age that did play a full season, and we got to see what it looked like with them at 34, 35 years old. So that's that with Trout. Um, that kind of, I mean, you kind of understood the argument anyway. So, what else do we have ready, Fed?
I don't get why Sale's in the top 50. I honestly think if he's healthy, he's not gonna have anywhere near as good of a season as he had last year.
Okay, why is that though?
Honestly, that season just came out of left field.
Was it because of performance or health? Because for me, it was completely because of health, right? If you just look based off of what Chris Sale did this past season, I can't project that what he did this season was fluky or unsustainable. Like, you can say it was ridiculously good, but his velo was back to the highest it's been since 2018. His FIP this past season was a 209. Ridiculously good stuff. I think that Sale for me was only docked because this is his first healthy season since 2018, right? Nothing that he did was necessarily very lucky. He was really well, 95th percentile hard hit rate from a guy who also has a 94th percentile K rate. I can't necessarily say anything about Chris Sale that's saying I don't think he's going to be able to repeat what he did, besides him potentially being hurt and not pitching at 100% because he's hurt. And until we see another season of Chris Sale being healthy, I'm not going to rank him as if he's going to be 2024 Triple Crown winner. But I'm still going to bake that in to where that is a possibility, and we'll see where the fallback is for me. Um, But yeah, I mean, I'm willing to hear your side of it a little bit more. Like, what's the reason believing why his performance won't be very good again?
Honestly, it's just the aging stuff, and I don't think he'll get enough innings.
I mean, that's partially fair, but he threw 177 this year. So like that's a full innings, a full year's workload, and that was with missing still 3 starts in there. Yeah, I mean, he pitched a full year's workload this past season, so I have no concerns about him really meeting an innings threshold. Um, I do really like Sale. It's just this is the first year in 5 years that he's been this good, and I felt really kind of comfortable putting him right next to Strider. I felt if Spencer Strider had the 2024 season that Sale did, and Sale missed the whole year with a UCL injury, it kind of wouldn't have been a surprise, but it was flip flopped, and I felt really comfortable about placing them in the same spots because I similarly have injury concerns with them both being healthy this season, and I do think if they pitch at their peak, like they are maybe the Cy Young favorites, but we'll ultimately just see. I mean, the odds of Sale repeating what he did in 24 are like I mean, averages will tell you it's just not going to happen. But him getting anywhere close, like maybe it's not a 2-0, but hey, it's a 2-4. Like that's still probably one of the best pitchers in baseball. Like you could argue two guys, in my opinion, are potentially going to be higher than a 2-4. So that's the Sale for me. Um, yeah, I mean, do you have anything else on that?
No, I don't. Other than I would have, I would have rathered a guy like Castillo.
Yeah, I mean, and for me, Castillo as well. Just he wasn't even a guy who was ranked, you know. Um, so I understand liking Castillo, but yeah, Sale and Schrader were eighth and ninth for me, and I don't know what MLB.com did, but I'm sure Sale was like what number two.
It's somewhere around there.
Yeah, I mean, no way he was any lower than four. So yeah, I just that's how I feel about Sale. All right, what do we got next, Finn?
Correa at 32. I have a feeling you docked him for injury.
Okay. I thought you were gonna go the other way with Correa. Um, Correa, kind of sneakily, right, had a very similar season to Kyle Tucker. I think he was pacing for about an 8.5 win season, and he ended up only playing about half the season. And it was just a really, really good season, and I can't really dock him as much as somebody who didn't have a good season and played the whole season is how I feel about it. And a year ago, Correa played a whole year, but he wasn't very solid. That's why he's not like towards the top. I honestly think if he had been healthy this whole season, his ranking would have been a little bit better, but it wouldn't have been, you know, towards the top of, yeah, it wouldn't have been super, like way higher. I think the 2023 down season really hurts him a lot. And that was a season where he played through a ton of injuries. So maybe injuries are definitely factoring in some way, but I would say that the 2023 season definitely factored a little bit more than only playing 85 games this past year. So that's Correa. Uh, what else do we have?
And then there's Devers. How much the defense factor? Because we all know Devers is a terrible defender.
I mean, let's see. This past season, let me look for an example actually before I speak out of my ass. Um, okay, this past season in outs above average, who do you think was higher? Rafael Devers. Actually, never mind. He was higher than him. uh, that was a bad example. Well, okay. I'll just simplify it. Rafael Devers isn't. He hasn't been as bad as people will tell you he's been. He's definitely not good defensively, and now we're seeing it where he's potentially moving off of third base with some acquisitions that they made. But this past year, he was a -6 and outs above average, which like isn't good, but it could certainly be a little bit worse. In 2023, it was a -8. That's pretty bad. But in 2022, which did factor in a little bit, it was a -2. So he's still got some decent seasons in him. Like the -2 is pretty solid, and yeah, he just hits. He just hits. Um, he was by Bat Plus. I think he was 21st in the league out of all the players who I consider for top 100, which nobody who hit better than Rafael Devers would have been not considered. So Rafael Devers was the 21st best hitter from Bat Plus. Um, he's really good. I don't think even if he moves to first base, I don't know how much his value would have changed. He probably would have been a decent defensive first baseman. Um, and we'll ultimately see. He's not a guy who like makes up any third base defense by having a cannon or anything. Like he has an okay arm, and he has brick hands. Not brick hands, but he just doesn't have great hands or range. So Rafael Devers, obviously the defense hurt him. And you can see that he ended up being ranked second among third basemen for me anyway. But if his defense wasn't good or was average, there's kind of an argument for him to be closer to first than third, and he was a lot closer to third. So that's the Rafi Devers debacle that we have on our hands. Um, Morphin, feed me more questions. I need to hear them.
How did you rank pitchers?
Very, very good question because I definitely had to go back and forth a ton of times on how I was going to rank pitchers. Okay, so here's what I did. I got the original query was guys who over the past 3 seasons have it was like the top I first did the top like 20 names in total F4 since 2022. And then I took any guys who had top 50 individual F4 seasons since 2022. And that's how I accumulated names. And then, I ended up with 30, 30 names. And then, I mean, we went over this before, but I gave a rough run prevention and a rough innings prediction. And then I based how certain am I that the guy is going to reach the innings, reach the run prevention, have stay clear of major and minor injuries, and then I evaluated their career trend and their age trend. And then I did some weird math, came to a certainty score, did some more weird math, and then I just evaluated what when everything goes right for this pitcher, like what is the run prevention look like, and then I ultimately came out with a total number. If I go with the order of this number, it was Skeens, Screwball, Wheeler, Reagans, Webb, Corbin Burns, Michael King, Logan Gilbert, Framber Valdez was the top 10. From that point on, all that I really did after that was evaluated, hey, how certain am I that this peak is going to happen? And, that's why guys like Schreider, who was ranked 12th, he ended up jumping to 8th, and Sale, who was 18th, ended up jumping up a ton of spots. So I didn't use the math that I did, the very rough math that I did, to be gospel, because that would be a bad way of evaluating things. I just used it as a simple way to lay things out. So I, start to evaluate pitchers against each other and, some method to the order. Um, but yeah, and then as I'm sorting through them, I'm going through, you look at the fan graphs just to get a idea of overall production, and then the savant numbers, specifically the big ones, because you would miss it with a couple guys, but like you go to the savant numbers and then you're like, hey, Corbin Burns, he was 95th percentile hard hit rate a year ago, and he gets a ton of ground balls, and you know his whiff and chase numbers are still really good, so I'm not worried about his strikeout numbers being down. Just simple stuff like that. That's basically how you would rank pitchers. That's how I went about it, and I think I liked the order that I came to with starting pitchers. I'm sure somebody could poke holes in the methodology, or make fun of one individual ranking, and I'm sure you might have one ready and fired up for me, Finn. So I guess is there a pitcher ranking that you really want an explanation for?
The lack thereof one, actually. You mentioned Michael King above a couple of the names that are on this list. I can't find his name on there.
Yeah, well, we had talked about him before. Um, he was, he's basically right-handed sinker baller Garrett Crochet, and they ended up getting ranked right together at 55 and 54. So there's your basic answer. That's Michael King. Um, yeah, I mean he was what, eighth originally when I spelled it out. It's just his ceiling. I'm not. I wasn't super high on him getting there, and like he ended up being 13th after I really sifted through things a little bit more. So he's still really good in my opinion. It's just he wasn't quite eighth. If he was eighth, he would have been. I think Schreider was eighth at 42. I wasn't quite necessarily sure to say that Michael King was 32 or 42. So that's Michael King. Um, I guess while we're here, get out all the starting pitcher questions. Let's get him out.
Honestly, that was basically all I had for starting pitching. Next, what I
Fair
had
enough.
was how did base running affect things, and how did you calculate it?
Uh, Simplest thing I could do was base running runs. Obviously, I want it what I'm doing to be all encapsulating, but I also want it to be simple. So Fangraphs has BSR. Um, I would do the same thing I would do for Bat Plus. I would take the past 3 years, an average, and then a greatest value, and then I would calculate their Run Plus using that. And yeah, what ended up happening is I that formula would go out there, and I would know who the best base runners in the league are. And the percent ranking that I used as a rough way to determine the order that I should order hitters. Base running was worth 5%. So does that kind of answer how things were done base running wise?
Yes.
And then obviously, like for a more specific example, Shohei Ohtani, I think by run plus was uh okay, never mind. Run plus he was still sixth, but he was a lot better in 2024 than he was in 23 and 2. So, there's some added stuff, and like, Ronald Acuna was a lot worse by run plus this season, as you could kind of tell, like there was something going on with his foot even at the start of the season. So yeah, or not his foot, his knee. But yeah, that's how that worked. I would do, a little bit of reasoning. I wouldn't use the numbers solely to make the list. There's a little bit of processing of, hey, this happened in 2024, so I can weigh a little bit more into the certain numbers over the total value that comes out after the graphing calculator gets involved. So that's the base running. What do we got next?
Honestly, just gotta commend you for using multiple seasons because of guys like Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
Yeah, Vlad was hard. Um, Off the top of your head, Finn, if you had to guess Vladimir Guerrero's 2023 OPS, what do you think it was?
Like 810.
You overshot it. It was 789. So, yeah, like a 789 from a first baseman is respectfully not very good. And like I can go in and look and say, hey, the batted ball numbers are a little bit better than that. But regardless, a 789 from a first baseman, I'll see. I gotta figure out where Vlad is here. It ends up being about 10% better than the average first baseman. And Vlad gives you nothing base running or defensively. So, Vlad ends up being like like pretty poor on that side of the ball. Or in total in 2023 is what I meant to say. Uh, so he had like a non-top 100 season in 2023, and then a season in 2024 where he's probably like a top 20 guy. Even with him being a first baseman this past season, he's probably a top 20 guy in 24. When I'm projecting, I have to say, hey, there's an outcome where he hits the ball on the ground a lot more, and it just isn't as good, and that factors in. He ended up at 39 for me. If we see another season with Vlad like 23 or like 24, then he's probably going to be in the top 20. I think with him, it was a really interesting situation where his last season that would have really helped him was 2021, and that just wasn't necessarily a season that played much of a factor in the calculation. It didn't play any factoring into any calculations that I did. Um, you can say that's error on my part, and obviously that is still taken into account mentally once I go through and rank the players. But I'm erring towards what's happened over the last 3 years, and not really much of a bias between those 3 years. So there is a bias towards the last two, actually. The last two seasons were weighed um, slightly more than 2022.
Honestly, when we have guys that play shortstop or like center field, that positioning factors in a lot. How much does it truly factor?
Okay, so in I guess shortstop's a weird situation because of what happened in 2024, but over the last 3 seasons, what do you think the WRC plus for shortstop is?
90?
It's about 95. Let's go to a right fielder. What do you think the average WRC plus for right fielders is over the last 3 years?
100?
It's like 105. So like you can see that there is a lot of value in shortstops. Like if there's a shortstop who hits, you know, has a 125 WRC plus, that's a lot more valuable than a right fielder who has a 125 WRC plus. Additionally, the shortstop will probably impact the game a lot better defensively than the right fielder. So that obviously it's going to matter a lot more. I don't know necessarily how I could use like quantify like what makes how much that it makes it better. So I don't know like what I could tell you. I guess we can go by based off of the top 100 position, or let's go the top 65 position players just to get a more sample size. I'll count up right fielders and I'll count up shortstops real quick. Um, Witt, Seager, Lindor, Betts are all there. Henderson, that's 5. Swanson is 6. Correa 7. Um, De La Cruz is 8. Trey Turner, Ha-Sung Kim are 9 and 10. JP Crawford is 11. And okay, yeah, that gets to 65. Versus right fielders, there's Aaron Judge, Kyle Tucker, Juan Soto, Acuna, Tatis, Wilder Abreu, Corbin Carroll, and that's it. So there's 7 versus 11. I mean, that's a rough way to quantify it, but what would that be? Um, an additional like 35%, I guess, is what I would tell you. That's not great math, but I'm sure it's somewhat close. So it definitely helps. I don't know if I did much in as far as quantifying how much it helps for you, but it definitely helps. Um, what else do we have on this list, Finn?
I noticed not very many catchers.
Reasoning. Okay, so there were a lot of catchers considered. If I sort A to Z, yeah, catchers would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 were considered. Um, Yainer Diaz, Salvador Perez, JT Realmuto, Will Smith, Gabriel Moreno, Austin Wells, Patrick Bailey, Adley Rutschman, Sean Murphy, Cal Raleigh, William Contreras were all considered. Obviously, like there were a ton of guys who like are good players, but there's not enough catchers necessarily who made the top 50. Obviously, there were guys who made the top 100. But what were there? Will Smith was the first catcher out of the top 50, and he was my fifth ranked catcher. So I had four catchers. So I guess technically, like, there was the amount of catchers you would expect there to be because there was four, and you would expect there to be um yeah, more than four. Wait,
What am I missing? I only see three.
yeah, I as well only see Finn or three Finn. Um, I'm just now realizing that. Yeah, I'm just now realizing I counted Will Smith as the fifth catcher when he was definitely the fourth catcher I listed. So I think that plays into the fact that Yainer Diaz was a guy who I was considering at the same spot as Will Smith at one point in time, and uh, I ended up forgetting about Yainer Diaz. So I think that's what ended up happening there. Um, but I mean, in general, catchers don't play as much. It is one part of it, and then just a lot of them don't hit as well. It's a very hard position uh, to play consistently, and there's a ton of value in the catcher position. It's just the guys who are great hitters and ace starting pitchers are more valuable than the mid-range catchers, in my opinion. So that's that explanation. Uh, what else do we have here?
I noticed you only have three first basemen. I'm assuming that's because first basemen basically have to be elite offensively to make this list.
Yeah. Uh, average or what do you think the average? Yeah, like the not the average, but what do you think the WRC plus is among third basemen or first basemen? I did the same thing as you over the last 3 years, Finn.
110.
So 107. So pretty close. They have to be really good. Okay, they have to be really good. Um, Compared to other positions too. Like, where do you think third basemen are, Finn?
About 98.
Yeah, about 90, 97, 98. Second basemen are around 93, 94. That's a lie. They're about 95. And then center fielders are 99. Um, Other than that, the other positions are typically a tick or two above league average, but first basemen are significantly above league average. They're not too much worse. That's a lie. DHs are around a 113. So if you're a DH, you got to really hit. Yordan Alvarez, he really hits. Shohei Ohtani, he really hits. So um, yeah, first base would really need to hit. That's why there's only three guys: Bryce Harper, Otani, and Vlad. I think were the only three that I ranked in the top 50, and then it wasn't too far down for my next first baseman. I think Matt Olson and Yandy Diaz were the next two guys at 64, 65, and then Christian Walker was at 71. Wilson Contreras was at 87, and you can see that like there's just not that many spots for first baseman, and Pete Alonso got ranked at 99. So there's just not many spots available for first baseman who you got to really hit. And I think Pete Alonso this past year had like a 118 WRC plus. It's like 10% above the average first baseman, and they just don't bring anything defensively typically, and then base running wise, they barely ever bring anything. So, what else do we have? It's my top catchphrase of the year.
Honestly, I don't have much more.
Yeah, I I think that's a sign that I did a pretty good job, or we just see things pretty similarly, which I think it can be a little bit of both.
I think that's a bit of both.
I think it's a bit of both. Let's see. Are there any ones that I want to specifically go out there? I guess I need to give the Julio thing because I didn't do it in the video. So I guess I do need to give the Julio Rodriguez because okay, I could definitely see how somebody would want to have Julio a lot lower because if you look at what he did this past season, it was a 7 um like a 743 WRC plus, or that's not even right, OPS, and his WRC plus was like 115, I would think. Um, let me just get confirmation on what his WRC plus was. But yeah, he with Julio, it's uh, a little bit more than that, and a lot of it with him as well is uh, he is just one of the best defenders in the league. He was 29th in Glove Plus among all players. Yeah, a 116 WRC plus this past season. And center field is a little bit better offensively than you would think. It's about a league average position offensively. Julio, his saving grace is, you know, 8 outs above average this past season. I actually wrote it down on here that yeah, his X slug was 50 points higher than his actual slug in 2024. His bat plus, which takes into account the past 3 seasons, where do you think Julio ranks among center fielders, Finn?
First,
Okay, that's the answer to my second question. He ranks fourth. The 3 guys he is behind is Mike Trout, Byron Buxton, and Jackson Merrill. So among
okay,
center
I
field,
was not considering Mike Trout as center field.
yeah, among center fielders who have over 1,000 plate appearances the last 3 years, Julio Rodriguez is ranked first. I think, unless Byron Buxton has sneakily gotten to 1,000 plate appearances. Um, and like I said, his X slug is 50 points higher than his actual slug. His 28 outs above average is fourth among center fielders. Take a guess who the 3 guys ahead of him are over the past 3 years who have more than 28 outs above average.
Brenton Doyle.
Brendan Doyle was one of them.
No, not Trout. He hasn't been healthy enough.
It wouldn't have been Trout anyway. Um, don't split the years. I remember all but one of these 2 guys. Um,
Trent Grisham.
Trent Grisham, no, he hasn't played enough. Okay, no, he actually ranks he ranks fifth. He ranks sixth. I misspoke. Okay, I'll read the names. Dalton Varsho, Jose Siri, Kyle Isbell, Brenton Doyle, and Jake Myers. Out of all of those guys, none of them are above league average hitters. And Julio Rodriguez has a 128 bat plus. And then if you don't even adjust for the position, which I would understand if you don't, 116, 128, 129 over the past 3 years. So among guys who are great defensive outfielders, Julio Rodriguez is like by far the best hitter. And if I go based off of the percent rankings, which I think are pretty good. Like I don't want to pat myself on the back, but I think they've done a good job on saying who's been the best players over the past um, 3 seasons. Julio Rodriguez ranks 20th. Like he's really good. His batted ball numbers are way better consistently than what actually happened. And I just don't understand docking him. I understand he had a 115 WRC plus this past year. Like that's still really good considering he had a +9 OOA. So he had a great year. Julio, disrespect is not to be accepted here. He still had I think, like a 4 F war too. And what everybody criticized as a horrible season for his standards. Yeah, he had a 3.8 F war. Are we going to pretend like he didn't have 6 F war seasons the past 2 years? I don't know. I think the fact that Julio was left out was kind of ironic because uh I feel like I'm a lot higher than him on than consensus is. And yeah, off the off the top of your head, you know what MLB.com ranked Julio? Because I could not imagine it was very high.
I don't.
Okay, I would imagine it was probably in the mid 30s. I think they did have him as the number one center fielder, though, which I agree with. As you can see by how I rate him, he's the number one center fielder. Um,
I'll look it up while you're answering the why you took Jose Altuve over Jackson Merrill and Rafael Devers.
Jesus, Sven, this is super like just like I mean, yeah, I took him over him, but like I had Devers at 28 and I had Merrill at 27 and Altuve was 25. I don't know. I just gave the nod to Altuve, who's been really good over the past couple seasons. If Merrill repeats his 2024, like Merrill's in the probably close to the top 10. Like, sure, but Jackson Merrill's had one season, and then Devers. I think him and Altuve are very similar. Uh, Altuve, if he wasn't playing in Houston, I would have a little bit more concerns about because he kind of just hits the ball to the Crawford boxes every, damn near every time, and um, I think his defense is, almost as bad as Devers is, and honestly, you could argue that it is as bad as Devers is. Um, yeah, yeah, they're in the same range for me. Like, if you want to really make an argument for Jackson Merrill over Altuve, like I'm fine with it. If you want to argue Devers over Altuve, again, I'm fine with it. Um, yeah, did you get confirmation on MLB.com?
Yeah, I did. 23rd.
Yeah, so 8 spots lower than I did. Um, yeah, I mean, for them, that's definitely down on Julio is the thing. For me, I guess the weird thing is Julio moved up 13 spots year to year. You can argue that he should have moved up off of a season that he had a 748 OPS, but you know, like I said, batted ball numbers looked like it should have been better. And then, like I said, his defense is great, so I can't. If the 4 win player is what a struggling Julio Rodriguez is, then yeah, sign me up for that. Um,
Also, I'm taking, I know this Brinkman, and I'm taking Ellie De Cruz over Jose Altuve.
you are
Yeah.
okay. Well, I didn't. So I guess. Do you want me to make the argument for those guys over Altuve?
Right now, anyway. The past 3 years, I can see it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna say that Altuve had a better 2023 than Ellie De La Cruz because that would just be objectively wrong. But I'm baking in the fact that hey, Ellie De La Cruz has only had one good major league season. That's why he's 33rd. Alex Bregman, you know, even though I don't really want to put too much stock into the 2024 walk rate being down, the 2024 walk rate was down. If it wasn't, I'm sure I probably would have had him over Altuve, right? I had Bregman at 31 versus Altuve at 25. Like I'm sure if Bregman repeated his career norm walk rates, he would have probably been in the top 20, in the top 25, which is what Altuve is at 25. So that I would say that it's very possible that next year Bregman will be ahead of Altuve. So sure, I mean I could understand the argument. Ooh, let's see. Do I have anybody else that I want to plead cases for? Um, let's see. Um, you know, Manny Machado. Going into this, I expected to have him a little bit lower than I did. He's pretty legit still. Manny Machado is still very legit. We talk about his contract because it's so bad, and a lot of the time that can distract us from how good of a player Manny Machado is. So Manny Machado is still a very good baseball player. Shout out to him. Hopefully he bounces back from Tommy John surgery because it really affected his defense in 2024. Um, Hopefully that with a full year of recovery, he is a good defender this past season because it was really good the 2 years prior, but not so good in 2024 was the last season that we played, of course. All right, Finn, do you have anything else for me?
I don't. And I'm not
Oh,
crucifying you for having Jose Altuve, or you had Jose Altuve.
yeah. I mean, where would you have wanted Altuve? I guess
Probably like 30th.
like 30th. So like, okay, let's go. Let's go by some names, I guess. So you already said Maryland Devers. You would have had over Altuve, right?
Right?
I'm assuming Trout as well.
Yes.
Okay. Harris, Michael Harris.
Honestly, because we're taking into account that Michael Harris will be playing center, and Altuve is going to be playing corner outfield. Yes.
Okay, I guess it is worth mentioning too. Altuve is still slotted to play second base. So I guess corner outfield Altuve maybe this is a different case, but and until like he is actually playing corner outfield for Houston, like Fangraphs projects him to play second. The Astros haven't come out and said that he is going to exclusively play left field. Like I'm going to project him to play second base. So second base Altuve versus Jackson Merrill, Rafael Devers spin. I think you can make a case either way. Which ones would you rather have?
I'd rather have Barrel and Devers.
Okay, that's fair enough. I don't think they're that different. You're still taking Trout,
I'm still taking Trout. And I'm still taking
Harris.
Harris.
Okay, Cole Reagans.
Honestly, I'll take Reagan.
Okay, Bregman,
I'd take Bregman over him.
Correa.
I would not take Correa over him.
Okay, but you would take Ellie.
Yes, I would.
Okay, why would you take Ellie but not Correa?
Honestly, I just think trajectory-wise, and health-wise, I have a lot more faith in LA playing a full season than I do Correa.
Okay, I think that's kind of fair. Uh, Austin Riley, Corbin Burns.
Honestly, I'd take both. Well, Burns, I need to see some health out of Riley.
Yeah, I guess. Trey Turner, Blake Snell, Machado.
Would take Trey Turner and Snow. Not quite
Okay,
Machado. I need to see his defense back up. That's a big part of his game.
okay. What if I told you Trey Turner's outs above average a year ago were like also bad? His 2024 outs above average was a -3, and his 2023 was a -6. So like, yeah,
I think I would just take Snow.
okay. So you felt with Altuve at like 35, assuming you would take all the guys I had above him over him as well. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just higher on Altuve. I said it in the video today. Do you know where he ranks in Bat Plus for me? Not for me,
I
but
don't
based off of the
remember.
numbers, it was
I don't remember.
seventh. It was seventh. Like, he's been really good. I docked him for age and him being a Crawford Botch merchant, but and I'm saying that jokingly. It's obviously a joke. Um, you know, it's just I still have faith in Altuve. He's been really good the last 3 years, and I don't want that to fall on waste.
The thing with why I take Bregman is that Bregman is a gold glover, whereas Altuve is just in bad defensively.
Yeah. Um, I didn't count individual seasons, but Altuve had a 127 WRC plus in 2024. Bregman had a let's see here, a 118. And then second baseman in 24 had a 91 WRC plus. Third baseman had a 95. So it would have favored Altuve a little bit more. You know, Altuve was this huge negative on defense. Bregman was a huge positive, and then base running wise, they're both not very good. Bregman probably had a little bit better of a season, but Altuve was so much better than the 2 years prior. So I don't know.
That's fair. Bregman
Yeah,
did have a pretty bad 23 and 22, at least compared to Altuve.
yeah, not bad, but compared to Altuve, he was a good bit worse. Um, yeah, you got anything else before we wrap this episode up?
Oh, I don't.
I can't wait for potential comments to come through after this video is up or after this video has been recorded, because we're recording this only like 3 hours after the video went live. I guess that's poor timing by my part, because we can't let the rage comments come in. They haven't been coming in yet. I'm sure within the next couple of days I might get a few. Um, but yeah, that'll do it for this episode. You should be seeing this on Thursday, like the 20th, I think, and there will be an NBA episode coming out in a couple of days with Sheldon and I. I think that's going to be one of our more fun episodes that we've ever done. It's going to be talking about the um uh, the unspoken shooting guards of NBA history. We're going to be talking about you know, everybody at the shooting guard position besides Michael Jordan, because he's the only one who ever gets talked about, enough. So yeah, that'll do it for this episode. Finn, do you have anything else before we wrap this one up?
Nope.
All right, we will
Other
see you
than I'm
guys.
looking forward to the next off-season recap that we do.
Yeah. Oh, next then will be episode. I actually have no idea, Finn. Do you know off the top of your head which division we decided will be the next off season?
I don't.
Okay. Well, you'll see when the video comes out. I think it's one of the West divisions.
I think it
Um,
was AL West because we started with AL Central.
yeah. Yep. All right. Well, we're going to be seeing you guys in the AL West. We'll see you guys then.